it. I think that's very important. You know, if there'd been an example of Bradford, for example, and perhaps even Leicester last year. I remember what happened in Leicester.
Where there was a conflict between Hindu people in Bradford and Muslim people in Bradford.
But what I would say, because I know the community reasonably well up there as well, and there are some other wider issues around employment, social issues. People, they want to work. People want to work and they want to contribute and integrate. So I think context matters a great deal. And I've seen programmes around the country, I've sat with councils around the country where it's pretty obvious that there are communities that have not integrated. We don't want that. That is not right. And I think it is important to give voice to that. But you cannot generalise, and I think context is important. And then just to add to that point as well, you know, I think we're here in Manchester. One of the most successful resettled communities in Manchester are actually, particularly in recent years, are the Hong Kongers, the BNOs that have come over. You know, they're educated, highly articulate, they are contributing. I've visited some, you know, I've met many in my tenure as Home Secretary. We cannot ultimately say that, you know, across the board people are not...
But there are different ways in which people do this. I mean, one of the things that I remember from the days when I was close to this kind of issue was that here in Manchester, an interesting thing is that some communities cluster, but that Chinese community is distributed across the city. I think that the story was that there were no more than 6 Chinese children in any school. So there are different ways, and government can make it easier for people to do it, as it were, the Chinese way.
I think now, yes, Trevor, you may appreciate the point that I'm about to make is that historically that has been much harder. 1960s, 1970s, for example, when communities that were new to the United Kingdom did not have support structures around them. So naturally they came together and lived in that way. Now it is very different. And the other point to make is that a lot of local councils do a lot more in integration. I mean, I saw this with Syrian refugees, BNOs, the Ukraine scheme. You know, integration is paramount. So I think it's important to give voice to these issues. Of course it is. But again, always have the right kind of context around this.
Just very quickly, something that surprised me that I heard that you had said, which is that you said that an article which had called Britain lawless, and you described that article as spot on. Do you really believe that?
No, not in the sense of Britain being lawless. There are very legitimate issues, and I know the article you're referring to, around knife crime. We saw that senseless murder of that young 15-year-old girl last week, and that's just appalling and tragic and totally preventable. Now, there is something there around, and to be fair, I did a lot of work, Trevor, on knife crime, gang work, county lines, getting weapons off the streets, stop and search. These are important areas, and I think there is more that needs to be done there. Young people are losing their lives senselessly, and I'm sure that all parents and families, and, you know, God bless that poor girl last week and her family, they are going through a terribly tragic and traumatic time, and that could have been preventable.
You can give me a quick yes or no to this. You're on platform with Liz Truss tomorrow. Could she come back as leader of the party?
No.
Thank you. Let's turn back now to our panel. It's unusual to get a one-word answer. I'm really surprised. Thank you very much, Priti Patel.
The 5 of us have made it out of the car.
Welcome to Backstage, the film and TV podcast. It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10. Our top story. Delays to caesarean sections ahead of 3 days of strike action by doctors. We get one woman's story.
I feel like I've now lost all control of the birth.
Senior Tories push for tax cuts, putting the Prime Minister under pressure on day one of the Conservative Party conference in Manchester.
Yes, no, I would like to see the tax burden reduced before the next election.
We're all Conservatives. Of course we want to cut taxes. The best tax cut, though, that I can deliver right now for the country is to halve inflation.
Also tonight, at least 13 people die in a fire that spreads through a number of nightclubs in southeast Spain. A school student on board a bus that crashed on the M53, killing 2 people, tells Sky News about the moment the bus tipped on its side. Victory for Europe's golfers in the Ryder Cup after a dramatic 3 days on and off the course. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30. Good evening. A woman who has had her caesarean section postponed for more than a week because of strike action has told Sky News she feels she's lost all control of her pregnancy. NHS walkouts mean appointments and procedures across the health service are being delayed. And this week, both junior doctors and consultants who would normally carry out C-sections are taking joint action from Monday, with Christmas Day levels of cover expected until Wednesday. The expectant mother, who's asked to remain anonymous, has spoken to our health correspondent, Ashish Joshi.
I feel like I've now lost all control of the birth.
We're protecting Lisa's identity by using an actor to tell her story. She's almost 39 weeks pregnant and has a pre-existing condition. There are concerns about the size of her baby. So with her midwife, she had planned to have an elective caesarean section.
I felt a huge relief at this decision. I have since been told that it's not possible to book the C-section because of the strikes. The earliest replacement date is more than a week after my due date. I think I'll be pushed for an induction before my C-section booking if I've not gone into labour.
This week, consultants and junior doctors will strike together for 3 consecutive days from Monday to Wednesday. While urgent and emergency care will continue, NHS England says the health service is facing extreme disruption. One Trust chief executive has confirmed to Sky News that the industrial action is impacting its ability to provide elective caesarean births. Matthew Hopkins, who runs Mid and South Essex NHS Foundation Trust, said, "We raised this issue as we take delays to planned caesarean births very seriously. Our first concern is the safety of women and birthing people and their babies, and all options are considered by our clinical teams before postponing planned caesarean births." The BMA has told Sky News that the vast majority of hospitals have rearranged their work either side of industrial action, and that specialist consultants are used to reprioritising how and when women are scheduled for induction of labour or caesarean section based on changing circumstances.
What does it say when you're going very fast? Vroom, vroom.
Shauna is a mum of 2 and the chief executive of the Twins Trust. She knows how stressful an elective C-section can be and says any forced change from a planned birth could compromise the safety of both mum and her baby.
Anything that increases the stress that you're already feeling is going to be unwelcome, particularly with this kind of an action, because you don't know how delayed you're going to be. And the date you're given is given to you because that's the right date for you to be delivering an already high-risk pregnancy.
The Department of Health says it's committed to making the NHS the safest place in the world to give birth for all women, and that during industrial action, the NHS will prioritise resources to protect emergency care and neonatal and maternity services.
I am certain I do not want to be induced.
But, as Lisa's case shows, there are concerns that this isn't really happening. Ashish Joshi, Sky News.
Well, our correspondent Amelia Harper joins us now from Basildon University Hospital. And Amelia, 3 days of strike action starting tomorrow. What can we expect?
Well, these are set to be the biggest strikes in NHS history. Not one but two sets of doctors will be walking out, junior doctors and consultants, in an ever-increasing bitter row about pay. It'll happen at 7 a.m. tomorrow to 7 a.m. on Thursday. And this time, doctors really want the government to sit up and listen. They will be staging what they're calling a national rally outside the Conservative Party conference on the 3rd of October. Well, what is it that doctors want? Well, in essence, they want pay restoration. The British Medical Association, the Doctors' Union, wants pay restored for junior doctors to 2008 levels. That, they say, would require a 35% pay rise. Ministers have given junior doctors, on average, an 8.8% pay rise and consultants a 6% pay rise. But doctors say that's not enough. Ministers say they will not go any further. Doctors are set to be staged outside picket lines at hospitals across England, and they say they are not going to be backing down.
Amelia, thank you. It was the first day of the Conservative Party conference in Manchester, and Rishi Sunak came under some tough opposition from members of his own cabinet. Michael Gove told Sky's Trevor Phillips that he would like to see tax cuts before the next election. The Prime Minister was then forced to respond to the comments, refusing to back down and saying he was focusing on inflation. Sky's political editor Beth Rigby has the story from Manchester.
Rishi Sunak's first party conference as Prime Minister, and likely his last before a general election.
Sunak, you're not welcome in Manchester.
He looks set to lose.
The Conservatives have trashed the NHS. No one voted for you, Sunak. Even your party doesn't want you.
Everything now resting on a Rishi reset. The message: this a Prime Minister prepared to take tough decisions to deliver real change.
Now what I want to do is show the country how we're going to change things for the better in the long term. And that means doing things differently, making decisions that will make a difference to people's lives, even if I get criticism for them.
But pressed on policy, the PM appearing bad-tempered over tax cuts and policies watered down in recent weeks.
That's the decision I've made.
But my question is the impact of spooking people by changing your mind.
No. I'm sorry. Yes, change may be uncomfortable for people. People may be critical of it, but I believe I'm doing the right thing for the country. I'm not going to shy away from that.
But if the PM is going to confront those uncomfortable decisions, he may be bounced into starting with HS2. Rumours here in Manchester, he's been pushed to announce a decision this week. But within a couple of hours on a visit to a local school, the smile returned and the reset wobble corrected. The PM back on camera and back on message.
The last few months of data should give us comfort and reassurance that we're getting there. Inflation is coming down, as I said it would. We're going to stick to the course, and that is the best way for me to help people.
It looks to me like someone had a word with Rishi Sunak this morning as he went from bad-tempered back to beaming smile. But you can understand it. This is a Prime Minister under huge pressure. He's massively behind in the polls. The right of his party are restive and getting loud about it. Some of his cabinet are on open manoeuvres, and the talk around here is less about Rishi Sunak and more about who might come next.
Hello, good morning.
Even though supposed to be loyal, buffeting this embattled PM, Michael Gove off script, calling for the pre-election tax cuts the Prime Minister is refusing to confirm.
I would like to see the tax burden reduced before the next election.
In your estimation, it ought to be possible given what you've seen of the economy and so on?
I think the critical thing is that we absolutely need to make sure that we are bringing inflation down. And as I say, naturally, everyone in the Conservative Party believes in lowering tax and particularly seeing hard work rewarded. But I can't speculate on what type of tax cut, if any, we're able to deliver until we are certain that inflation is coming down.
Many senior figures hugely frustrated with the PM and the polls and prepared to make this known.
We're pro-enterprise, pro-economic growth, pro-letting hard-working people keep more of their money. I will absolutely be saying that we must stand up for Conservative values and beliefs. This is the time to do it.
But there is some party discipline to be found.
He's still got a chance of winning the next election, Mr Heaton-Harris, do you think?
100%.
Are the Cabinet united on this?
Of course, the Cabinet's united about all matters.
Are you going to unite a broken party, Prime Minister?
And the PM will need a lot more of that to have any hope of this reset sticking.
Beth joins me now. Beth, a tough first day for the Prime Minister. What do we think the rest of the conference will look like?
Well, there's a few things happening here, Gillian. I've just actually been at a dinner with a number of Rishi Sunak loyalists, and actually they were quite upbeat. They think that the polls are beginning to turn in their favour, just a trickle of support perhaps, but certainly the gap slightly narrowing. They think that the Prime Minister is beginning to set out policies that will be attractive to voters, to appeal to people's common sense, if you like, when he says he's sticking up for motorists or watering down green policies. And the message that they give to us is that you have to let the Conservatives finish the job. You will hear a lot more about that in the coming days. Don't risk it on the other lot. Let us finish the job. That's what you're going to hear from the Conservatives. But when you step out of the room of believers, there's a lot of people losing faith, and you are going to see that this week in a Prime Minister trying to set the agenda but being destabilised in different ways. We saw it today. You saw Priti Patel with her remarks about tax cuts. Tomorrow there will be a great British growth rally. Liz Truss is expected to speak there. She'll be joined by Dame Patel and then Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg as well. And all of that coming as Jeremy Hunt takes to the main stage to try and press his case for the economic plan that the government is on and saying tax cuts not now. So you can see these divisions play out right in front of your very eyes. And all the while as well, the Prime Minister dealing with some cabinet ministers too on manoeuvres, because this is the final party conference probably before a general election. Lots of people looking at what comes next. And while Rishi Sunak is determined to try and take the fight to Labour, a number of his colleagues are resigned to the fact they think they're not going to get it past the post for the Prime Minister, and wondering what comes next for the Conservative Party.
Very interesting time ahead. Beth, thank you. And for more political analysis, scan the QR code on your screen right now to subscribe to Politics at Jack and Sam's. It's our brand new podcast with the Deputy Political Editor Sam Coates and the UK Editor of Politico, Jack Blanchard. And at 7:30 tomorrow morning, the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, will speak to Kay Burley in Manchester. A fire at a nightclub in Spain, which tore through 3 adjoining bars, has killed at least 13 people. The incident took place in the city of Murcia in the early hours of this morning. Officials say they're continuing to search the building, following reports that a number of people are still missing. A warning: this report from Sky's Emma Birchley contains images that you may find distressing.
Undeterred by the ferocity of the inferno, firefighters head towards the blaze, passing the bar and abandoned stalls of the Teatre nightclub as they hose down the flames. The fire broke out at around 6 a.m, not here, but at another neighbouring club called Fonda in Spain's southeastern city of Murcia. A third venue called Golden also caught light, with more than 40 firefighters called to the scene as crowds gathered outside while smoke billowed from the buildings.
As they are next to each other, the spread has been very fast through the 3 rooms, but the Teatro was able to be evacuated quickly.
This video released by the fire service shows the aftermath of the destruction. A collapsed roof has hampered the recovery operation, but as time has passed, more and more bodies have been discovered in Fonda's ashes. Some are yet to be identified, but among the missing are members of a group out celebrating a birthday. The wait for news has been unbearable.
My daughter sent an audio message to her mother saying what was happening to her and saying goodbye, and you could hear screaming.
4 people were taken to hospital by ambulance suffering from smoke inhalation, but many others made their own way there. What caused this deadly fire is not yet known, and police investigators are unable to begin their work until the buildings are made safe.
The firemen have warned that there is some danger of collapse, so they're shoring up the area to be able to extract the bodies. The extraction work is exhausting. The firemen go out, they lie on the ground with oxygen. They have to drink water because it's quite hard work.
3 days of mourning have already been declared to remember those who lost their lives on a night out. Emma Birchley, Sky News.
Turkey says it has carried out a number of airstrikes in northern Iraq tonight. Turkey's defence ministry has said its warplanes had destroyed 20 targets of suspected Kurdish rebels in response to a suicide bombing near Ankara's parliament building earlier today. A member of the banned Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, is thought to be behind the blast in Ankara. A man has been charged tonight with a public order offence after a young football fan, Bradley Lowry, who died of cancer, was mocked at a match. Dale Houghton from Rotherham will appear before Sheffield Magistrates Court tomorrow. A second man who was arrested has been released on bail. A pro-Russia politician has staged a political comeback to win the parliamentary elections in Slovakia. The former Prime Minister, Robert Fico, is set to return to power, but will need to form a coalition government first. Mr Fico previously resigned as Prime Minister following mass protests against corruption and has vowed to withdraw military support for Ukraine if he won. A teenager who was on a bus that crashed on the M53 on Friday has told Sky News of the trauma the incident has left behind. 15-year-old Jessica Baker and the driver, Stephen Shrimpton, both died when the coach overturned on the motorway. Our North of England correspondent Shingi Marike has spoken to a boy on the same bus who wants to remain anonymous. The Sky News producer has voiced his words. He describes the moment of the crash.
We were all just chatting on our phones. Then all of a sudden, nothing seemed real. Like I stood up because I felt something really weird. Then all of a sudden, I'm getting thrown to the side. The bus has tipped. Nothing felt real.
It was a trip to school that started as normal, before turning into a tragedy. This teenager walked away from an accident on the M53 motorway. We have revoiced the pupil using a Sky News producer to protect his identity.
I looked around and there's just people lying down everywhere. Bags are everywhere. There's glass everywhere. And it's just like blood everywhere. I've seen both my mates on the floor, but I thought they were dead. I looked around again and saw a girl stood next to me. I was in shock. I put my hand on my face and I looked back at my hand and it was covered in blood. I remember saying, this can't be my blood.
The crash left 2 people dead and another with life-changing injuries. His picture of the aftermath, a haunting reminder. He's incredibly lucky to still be alive. 15-year-old Jessica Baker, who he knew, is one of those who lost their lives. Something he feels hasn't sunk in.
I was just in shock. I couldn't believe it because obviously it could have been me in that position. She's basically my age, really, and then it's just a horrible thing to think about.
In their first statement since her death, Jessica's family said, Jessica was a warm-hearted, wonderful daughter, granddaughter, and niece, devoted sister, and loyal friend. A talented climber based at the Boardroom Climbing Centre Academy, where she helped coach younger climbers and competed around the country, inspiring others. Her untimely death has led to a massive void in our lives that will never be filled. Jessica's school called her unequivocally kind and empathetic, a conscientious student who exemplified their value. This student wants to join those paying tribute to her when he can, but right now he's dealing with both the physical and emotional impact of what happened that day.
We were on the motorway going somewhere. Water hit the screen pretty fast. I nearly broke down in the car because it was horrible.
Dealing with that trauma will take some time, and going back to school will be hard.
A couple of hours after it happened, when I was sat upstairs, I'd realised it was crazy. I still don't know how, I got up so quick and things like that, and I don't know how I weren't, screaming, crying. I think I was subconsciously happy to be alive, happy to be where I am now.
Shingi Marike, Sky News, The Wirral.
The energy price cap has been revised down, taking around £150 off the average bill in the 3 months from today. It means bills could be about to fall for millions. But as our correspondent Ivor Bennett reports, some households could still end up paying more this winter without government help.
For thousands of families across the country, this is a terrifying time because the changing seasons and colder weather also mean crippling costs and an annual battle for survival.
It is getting cold on a night. And it's just scary. You shouldn't have to live like this, really. You shouldn't have to live thinking that you can't put the heating on in your own home.
Single mum Lowry Williams has already had to cut back, cancelling some of her daughter's activities to make ends meet as best she can.
Probably 2 weeks into the month, all the money's gone on bills. So there is no extra. So any extra now that's going to come on gas and electric is highly likely probably not going to get paid. And that's a worry because you actually think, at what point do they take action to then, I don't know, cut you off? That's the worry.
For the last 3 months, the energy price cap was £2,074, which is what an average household pays on fuel per year. It's now come down to £1,923. That's much lower than last winter, but back then bills were reduced by government handouts. And this winter, there are no handouts, which means bills will actually be higher.
Energy prices are 13% higher than they were last winter. And last winter, we were in real crisis mode. For people on really low incomes who are benefits claimants, there are payments, cost of living payments. For people with disabilities or pensioners, there will also be payments there too. But plenty of those people don't fall into those camps and will still find it really, really difficult.
It's prompted campaigners to call for more government help, a social tariff for those in need. But how feasible is it?
It's hard, and one of the reasons the government hasn't done it yet is because it's hard. At the moment, the government mostly understands people's incomes as individuals rather than as households, and that's what you need in order to put in place a social tariff for energy.
For most this winter, it's a question of when to turn on the heating. But for some, it'll be about whether it comes on at all. Ivor Bennett, Sky News.
Europe's golfers have regained the Ryder Cup from the USA following 3 days of sporting drama in Rome. The European team reached their target of 14.5 points this afternoon, bringing to an end a tournament which will be remembered for its controversial incidents as much as its golf, as our sports presenter Jackie Beltrao reports.
Day 2 of the Ryder Cup should have ended on a high for Europe, but was marred by a car park altercation between Rory McIlroy and a Team USA caddy. McIlroy was unhappy after caddy Joe LaCava appeared to step across the line of his crucial putt. Tensions were high in the American camp as well after controversy over Patrick Cantley's refusal to wear a team hat, apparently in protest over pay. But the Europeans had a reset overnight, front-loading their lineup with the biggest players. Jon Rahm, the world number 3, getting things started, putting some blue on the board immediately with a birdie at the first on the Marco Simone course. Soon followed by Rory McIlroy, who also went up in his match, clearly not rattled by his emotional car park outburst. Patrick Cantlay, USA's best player, again without the controversial hat, tried to keep some momentum going for his team. And then the points started rolling in. Victor Hovland taking the first point for Europe as he defeated Colin Morikawa with 3 holes to spare. Jon Rahm, with a piece of brilliance on the last, wrestled a crucial half from the opening match. Meanwhile, Justin Rose attempted an epic fight back against Cantlay, but the American took the point. It was 12-7. McIlroy closed out his match against Sam Burns to take the score to 13-7. And Tyrrell Hatton got them tantalisingly close with a brilliant bunker shot to seal a 3-2 victory over Brian Harman. Who could bring the Ryder Cup home with so much USA red on the board? Tommy Fleetwood was the man, defeating Fowler 3-1. Incredible relief all round for Luke Donald and his team.
Pretty emotional. It's been a long process. It's been an amazing journey, and I enjoyed this one.
For the winners of the 2023 Ryder Cup,
Hats Hats off to the USA for making a fight of it, but it was the perfect revenge for the humiliation of Whistling Straits 2 years ago. Rome conquered, job done. Jackie Beltrao, Sky News.
Well, tonight the European celebrations continued with Team Europe posting this video of Rory McIlroy and his teammates enjoying their victory on the team coach.
USA is terrified, Europe's on fire. Ooh.
Wow, they're really rocking that bus, aren't they? Well, let's get the rest of the sports news now with Vishali.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people, more active. Live life with Vitality.
Tom, a couple of months on now from your retirement. How's that transition been from playing to coaching?
It's been exactly what I needed at that time in my life. You sort of banging your head against the wall, injury after injury and recurrent injuries, and yeah, you sort of lose your sense of purpose when you've known nothing but being a footballer for 15 years and your body just won't let you do that anymore. It was great to have to walk straight into something I'm passionate about, a club I'm passionate about, and yeah, I feel really lucky to have fell on my feet in such a good role that gives me a real sense of purpose in my life.
Was it difficult towards the end of your playing career? Did you have a few dark moments? Because when you've spent a whole lifetime playing football and then you realise that your career is coming to an end.
I think the most difficult thing to take, I felt like my technique and my lungs were all fully there. It's just my body wouldn't let me perform sustainably, and I just couldn't bang it out in the championship game after game, and kept breaking down, and it was frustrating because I knew I was good enough to play at the top end of the championship. I knew I was fit enough, as in like CV wise. It was just that my body let me down one too many times, and to the point where I had to give in.
So you come into coaching, was that always the ambition?
Yeah, so I started doing my badges this time last year. Since I came back to Watford, I felt like I saw an opportunity where I could help younger players as captain over there, or as vice captain under Troy. I felt like it was my responsibility to help younger players, and yeah, it was always my motivation to become a coach. Maybe not this quickly, but like I said before, I'm looking.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Well, that's Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview, including this story on the front of the Metro. Their headline, "My target is winflation," as Rishi Sunak seeks to reassure backbenchers over pre-election tax cuts. Tonight, we're joined by the editor of The Voice newspaper, Lester Holloway, and the writer and broadcaster, Esther Kraku. We'll be right back. Do stay with us.
For many people, Harvey is far from over. Christchurch has been changed forever by what happened here.
There was a river of blood coming out of the mosque. That's a scene that you don't forget.
Ida has certainly left its mark on New Orleans.
It just feels heartbreaking.
We help you understand the world with us. We are standing on the supply line right into the heart of America's opioid crisis. I've reported from around the world and around the UK. Are you trying to run me over, Sir Philip?
No, go away.
Look like it, sir. Will you respond to those who've made accusations, Sir Philip?
Can you go away?
Joe Biden knows the celebrations are over. and this is a country in crisis.
You don't want to be remembered this way. You always want to be remembered as something positive.
It is almost impossible to predict where these fires will go next. This gives you an idea of the strength of those winds, strong enough to bend and twist metal.
Do you regret the tweet, Gary?
There's no sign, publicly at least, of either side being willing to give ground. How do you reassure the public that all of these mistakes wouldn't be made again? I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.